Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Harrisonburg Rotary Club. Let's do what we do and join me as we start in the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it be a good news to all? So Ash is going to lead us in song today, and I believe it might be My Country 'Tis of Thee. Is that correct? All right. All right, let's turn to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Today's invocation is from a person we haven't heard from for a while, Steve Wingfield. Glad to have you here. And confess. Okay, Dan, do you have some visitors and guests to introduce? Come on up.
Good afternoon. Hey, it's great to be here. Yeah, thank you for this club. Very wonderful to be with you. We have two guests today. We have one who's a visiting Rotarian, Bill North from Frederick County, and he's here to see Dianne, our speaker today. And we have Seth Chrisman, who is a guest of Maynard Brubaker. So let's welcome them.
Anything you wanted to say about your guest? Just welcome. Great. Glad to have you, Seth. Okay, we've got a couple of things to do before we get started with our program. And one of those is a family of Rotary. And I understand that Maynard and Jan will be celebrating 56 years later this week. Is that correct? All right. Well done. Well done. So that's really good work. So Mike, please. Awesome. Wow, that's great. The way you play golf, that's probably true. Yeah. Very good. Anybody else? Yeah, yes, go ahead. Wow, great. Thank you. That's great. So yeah, we'll keep getting as much of that entered into systems so we get automatically reminded, but please keep letting us know. But that's fantastic. That's wonderful. Okay, with that said, I am also going to quickly acknowledge some perfect attendance. And if you're here, you can just stand and be recognized. And you can see Michael Newpower at your own time convenience. You can get another pin or attachment to your pin if you would like. One of the things that you may not realize is during the pandemic, we decided to not penalize anybody that missed a meeting when we weren't having a meeting. So maybe we surprised some people, but some really good ones. Marshall Yoder, 4 years. This is through June of 22. Steve Hoddle, 13 years. Is Steve here today? Stand up, Steve. Well done. Sue Chotty, 7 years. To me, anything past a year is impressive. John Rosenberger, 11 years. Wave your hand, stand up, John. Well done. We'll applaud for all these people in a minute. John Downey, 6 years. I don't see John today. Jonas, 24 years. That's really good. Ken Horst, 7 years. Susan Null, 7 years. Andy Van Hook, 8 years. Tom Jackson, 8 years. Of course, Tom's been a member for a long time, but 8 years of perfect attendance. Chester, 58 years. Wow. Unbelievable. Yes, you have to stop and applaud immediately when you hear 58 years, but we have one more. Don Meyerhopper, 24 years. So that's really impressive. I'm glad so many of you were here today, but that's quite an honor. And come see Michael if you want a different pin or so. Thank you. Now, that is all I have before I introduce Mike Mariello owes us a thumbnail sketch. And look forward to hearing Mike's thumbnail, and then we'll introduce our speaker. So come on up, Mike.
Thank you, Wayne. Is that on? Hello, everybody. I have never seen one of these done before, so I am so sorry, because this is going to be okay. The bullet points that I understand I'm going to talk about is a little bit about myself, maybe a little bit about who I work with and why I'm here. Like, why did I decide to be a part of the group? Is that acceptable? All right. Then you'll ask. I was told to be funny. I'm so sorry. That's not going to happen. All right. So a little bit of my name is Mike, Mike Muriello. I have lived here since 2007. So I'll give you just the abbreviated version of how I came to be here. So I went to school for piano. I studied piano my whole life. Then I came to JMU for graduate school and studied higher education administration, which is a little bit of a departure from piano. It's a little bit. After leaving graduate school, I had 2 job offers, and I decided not to take either one of them. And I asked my wife, do you mind if I start a business instead? She said, I love you, so do what you want to do. We didn't have kids at the time. She said, what's the difference? So I started a photography company. I was interested in photography. So long story short, a few years later, I was recruited by JMU to be the photographer at JMU. And I served there for almost 9 years as the photographer, and I ran their photo and video department and marketing department. While that was happening, I was also running the photography company, which grew and grew into a marketing company. I left JMU and I run our marketing company called the Downtown Creative. So our company, oh wait, I missed a couple of things. Happily married, have 2 boys, 8 and 10, Max and Chase. They're the best thing ever. And we went surfing for the first time ever last week. We tried to surf. So it was pretty fun. So our company is called the Downtown Creative. We're a fractional CMO, fractional chief marketing officer for lots of companies and organizations all around the country. What I like to explain is that JMU has a 40-person marketing department. They have 2,833 employees. That's how many people it takes to serve an organization of that size. We have 10 full-time employees, 7 contractors. We serve about 1,450 employees all across these various companies and organizations. So that's kind of what we do. We have fun doing it. And I don't know, I think between how I got here, work and home life, everything is covered up to that point, right? Am I missing anything, or is there any questions? Wayne asked me. No. So, okay. So I don't know if I told Wayne this. A competing Rotary organization asked that I join them. It was the Rockingham group, the Rockingham Club. And I think that they're a great group of people. I also, Wayne asked that I come as a guest to this one. And this one worked better with my schedule. And I think I clicked a little bit more after meeting a few people. But why did I join Rotary in general? We wanted to make a difference. I know that sounds very cliche. We work with a lot of different companies and nonprofits, and it is still a 2-way street. We're giving something and getting something. We wanted to do something where we got nothing in exchange for just giving. So when I'm here, I really want to engage. I want us to engage. We want to be a part of this organization. We want to be a part of this community. That's pretty much it. That's the simplest answer I could possibly say. Thank you.
So Mike, that's exactly a thumbnail sketch. Like that's perfect. Yep. Well done. So with that said, we'll call Rodney up to tell us a little bit about our speaker for today.
Today, we are going to hear from Honor Flight, as you can see already from the screen. I'm just going to do some brief introductions, and I think, Diane, you're going to be the primary speaker, but Bill is here and may have a few words as well. So let me start out with Bill North of Bunker Hill, West Virginia. Has been a member of Rotary since 1981 and has served 2 clubs as its president, and most recently was club president of the Rotary Club of Frederick County. A U.S. Army veteran from the Vietnam era, Mr. North has been a professional in the hospitality industry since 1973 as general manager. North has served in historic corporate resort hotels and private executive estate and historic inn. Most recently, North, with his veteran son, took an honor flight trip in June from Winchester, Virginia. It was a life-changing experience for both of them. Recently, North joined the Honor Flight Top of Virginia Board of Directors. And Dianne Klopp is the founder and president of Honor Flight Top of Virginia. Although she is not a veteran, she is the proud daughter of an Air Force veteran and daughter-in-law of a retired Marine and Korean War veteran. Dianne received her undergraduate degree from James Madison University and her master's degree from George Mason University. She is proud mom of 3 boys, the oldest of whom is commissioned in the Army. Dianne has volunteered for the Honor Flight Network for over 10 years. So we look forward to hearing your program today. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me and for having us and letting us share a little bit about what it is we do in our upcoming trip from Harrisonburg. There we go. So Honor Flight Network is a nationwide organization, and basically our whole goal, our entire mission is to honor World War II, Korea, and Vietnam veterans by giving them a day trip to Washington, D.C. so that they can see their memorials. We want to let these veterans know that we have not forgotten about them, and we want to just give them a day of honor at absolutely no cost to them. Back in December of 2004, the World War II Memorial was finally being built in Washington, D.C., 60 years after the end of the war. And there was a gentleman by the name of Earl Morse. He was a physician's assistant at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. And many of his patients were World War II veterans. And so at that time, all the talk was about the World War II Memorial and how it was finally being built. And as time went by, Earl kept talking to these veterans about how excited they were to go to DC to see their memorial. And as time went by, for whatever reason, they weren't able to get there. They couldn't drive themselves halfway across the country. Their family couldn't get off work to take them. They didn't have the financial means, whatever it was, they were not able to get to DC. And so Earl happened to be a private pilot. And he went up to his favorite World War II veteran and said, "If I fly you in my plane, would you like to go to DC to see your memorial?" And the veteran started crying. And so Earl thought, you know what, I think I am on to something here. And so he took the veteran, put him in his plane and flew him to DC. When they came back, he went to his buddies at the Aero Club at Wright-Patterson, and he said, "This is what I want to do. I want to fly veterans to DC at no cost so that they can see their memorial." And so in May of 2005, 6 planes flew a total of 12 veterans. They flew those little itty bitty planes into Manassas Regional Airport, put them on a bus, and they went to DC. And since then, we have grown exponentially. Go to the next slide. We now have 129 hubs in 44 different states. In 2021, obviously, we were shut down for quite some time because of COVID. You know, the elderly population, we did not want to be taking them out in the midst of COVID, so we had to shut down for a while. But since the program started in 2005, we have now flown over 250,000 veterans to DC to see their memorial at absolutely no cost to them. We currently have over 46,000 veterans on the waiting list, and sadly, several hundred died while we were shut down due to COVID. So this is nationally what we have done. Now, locally, when my sons were very young, they were little itty bitty Tiger Cub Scouts. One day I heard that there was a flight of World War II veterans coming into Dulles, and I thought it was extremely important to teach my kids respect for the veterans, respect for their flag, how to say the Pledge of Allegiance. And so I loaded up their little Cub Scout pack into my minivan, and off we went to Dulles, and we greeted a flight of World War II veterans that was coming in. And from that time on, I was just hooked. It was just such an amazing experience. And so what I had found was that there are some hubs across the country that have so many veterans on their waiting list. For example, Chicago flies 105 veterans every month. And what they do is they charter an entire Southwest plane. Southwest is one of our airline partners. And so they fill that plane up with all veterans, and then they pair them with what we call a guardian when they get to the airport. A guardian is just a buddy for the day, somebody to push their wheelchair if they need to be in a wheelchair, grab their lunch, make sure they're drinking their water. And so I became a guardian, and I would go out to Dulles when the flights came in and get paired up with a veteran and spend the day with them. And it was just the most incredible experience. And so I was hooked, and I did that for maybe 6 or 7 years. And one day I was standing there waiting for the plane to come in, and I thought, you know what, this is great that we are doing this for the veterans flying in from Texas and California and Chicago and everywhere else. But why aren't we doing this for the veterans right here in our area? They deserve that day of honor just as much as the veterans flying in from across the country. And so that's when I formed Honor Flight Top of Virginia. We're based out of our mailing address, as you'll see on the brochure, is Middletown, but that's just because I'm the one who goes and checks the mailbox, and I live in Middletown. But we currently do 3 different locations. We do Harrisonburg, Winchester, and Loudoun County, and next year we're going to expand to Prince William County. So we will take any veteran that can get to us. We've had veterans from Pennsylvania, North Carolina, anybody that wants to go, we will gladly take them. So we had our first trip October of 2016. We've had 14 missions to date. We are just shy of honoring 600 veterans. And I'm very proud to say that we have honored 66 World War II veterans to date. These gentlemen were on one of our previous Harrisonburg trips. They were all World War II veterans, and they were so spry. We had a hard time keeping up with them. The gentleman in the middle, he was teaching us how to do things on the iPhone that we had no idea you could do. So it was a great trip. So again, our mission simply is just to transport veterans to DC to see their memorials, to give these veterans some closure. So many times, especially the Vietnam veterans, you know, since we're a 2-hour drive from DC, people can drive there, but it's a completely different experience when they are on that bus with 50 other veterans who have been through what they've been through. So many of them, especially the Vietnam guys, have told us that they've never been able to get to the wall. Physically, they can get there. Emotionally, they were not able to go. And when they're on the bus with 50 other guys that have been through that experience, then they are finally able to get there and get that closure that they so desperately need. And one more point, there is absolutely no cost to the veteran. We provide breakfast, lunch, dinner, no cost whatsoever. That's one of our founding principles. They are not to pay a penny for the trip. Guardians. Every veteran is assigned a guardian for the day. Again, this is just a buddy. They are eligible to bring a family member with them to be their guardian if they like. So some of the veterans will bring their son or their grandson, and Bill will talk about how he brought his son with him when he went. But we also are very, very blessed. We have an incredible relationship with the JMU ROTC program, and their cadets serve as guardians on our trip out of Harrisonburg. And it's a wonderful experience, both for the veteran and the cadet. And in fact, some of the cadets have formed wonderful relationships with the veterans. They'll get invited over to the veterans house for dinner and meet the wife. And we recently had a cadet who invited the veteran to do their first salute at their commissioning ceremony, which is very special. So typically what we do, let me just explain a typical trip to you. So from Harrisonburg, we leave from the Rockingham County Fairgrounds. The veterans arrive very early in the morning. I don't have the exact time in my head for the next trip, but I want to say it's like 6:45 in the morning. They show up. We give everyone an honor flight polo shirt to wear. That's their uniform for the day. And then we feed them breakfast. We pair them up. We have a professional photographer that takes everyone's pictures. Here on our table, we have the photo books that you're welcome to look at. We take over 500 photos throughout the day, and each veteran is gifted a photo book. A lot of them have some memory issues, and so we want to be able to let them share that day with their family and their friends and kind of relive that day. So we give them a photo book. And then we go to DC and we go to the World War II Memorial, Korea, Vietnam Wall. We normally have lunch at the Air Force Memorial. We go to Iwo Jima. And then my absolute favorite stop of the day is Arlington National Cemetery for the changing of the guard. And we currently have special access so that we drive the tour bus right up to the Tomb of the Unknown so that the veterans do not have to walk. And recently we participated in a wreath laying ceremony, and there is nothing like, we had a 98-year-old World War II veteran on our April trip. He had been pushed in a wheelchair all day long. We asked him if he wanted to lay the wreath, and he said, absolutely. And so we had it arranged that the Korean War veteran would push the World War II veteran up to lay the wreath. And in my head, it was a great plan because the Korean War veteran was a little unstable, so he could hold on to the World War II veteran, and they would go up and lay the wreath. Well, when the Tomb of the Unknown soldier turned around to proceed, the World War II veteran decided he was going to get up and walk. And I about died 10,000 deaths watching him walk across there. I'm thinking, you know, what's the procedure if he trips and falls? Are they going to shoot me when I run out there to get him? I didn't know what was going to happen, but he did it. He walked, and he said it was the highlight of his military career to lay the wreath at the Tomb of the Unknowns. So here's just a group picture from one of our trips with the JMU ROTC cadets. We also, we have two ladies in red shirts. Those are our nurses. So obviously we don't provide medical care, but we have the nurses on board in case there's an issue. We also take wheelchairs. We have plenty of wheelchairs if anybody needs to be pushed. Pre-COVID, we would tell the veterans, you'll get more kisses if you're in the wheelchair, just to encourage them to let us push them. It's just a fabulous day. If someone is confined to a wheelchair, we take a wheelchair lift bus. We don't want to let that stop them from going. This gentleman, you may recognize him. He's a Harrisonburg resident, Pearl Harbor survivor. Senator Dole is amazing. This man, I was telling, he lives in your community. Yeah, Bob Gaines, he's a World War II veteran. So he went, his Vietnam veteran son-in-law went as his guardian. And we had the opportunity, because we are the closest hub to DC. One day NBC News wanted to do a feature on Bob Dole and how he always greets the veterans. And so we took a busload of World War II veterans and went up and met Bob Dole. Some of the reenactors that meet us downtown. The people from the Korean embassy are so grateful for what our soldiers did for their country. They often come out and will greet us at the Korean Memorial. Just some more of the veterans and their guardians. Obviously, we're not going to force anybody to go to the wall. If they want to stay on the bus, they're welcome to stay on the bus. But as I said, this is the time when they usually can make it and get that closure. We actually had a Vietnam veteran after the trip. I was the only one still there cleaning up, sweeping the floor because, you know, being the president and a volunteer is such a high paying job that you're the last one there sweeping the floor and taking out the trash. And I was the last one there, and a Vietnam veteran came back in, and I thought he had forgotten his jacket or something. And he said, I couldn't tell you this in front of everybody, but I just wanted to let you know now that I've been honored, I can finally die in peace. So this is what we try to do for these guys, give them that closure. They never got the welcome home. They never got a thank you. They got the opposite. We've had so many of them tell us they were told not to wear their uniform in the airport because they would be set on fire. And so we want to try to, you know, we can't change history, but we do our best to give them a different welcome home experience. This is the obviously the change of the guard at Arlington. In addition to being able to drive the tour buses right up to the Tomb of the Unknowns, we also have this special change off front row access so that our veterans get a front row view. One of the things that we like to surprise the veterans with on the bus ride home, we do mail call. And mail call, when they were in the service, they would get cards and letters from home. And so we try to secretly reach out to their friends and family and get a thank you card or a letter or a drawing from the grandkids, anything. So that's something, you know, if you have in your community, you could ask for a card drive so that we could put some thank you cards and letters in the mail for these veterans. This was not the last trip, but 2 trips ago, we had a wonderful turnout from the local motorcycle group who escorted us back through town. That was fantastic. We also have the fire department. They come and they hang the flag over the street as we turn into the fairgrounds. This is our trip in Winchester, but we do the same thing in Harrisonburg as well. And then the welcome home. So you can see we've got the streets lined. So we would beg of you, please come out. September 24th is our next trip from Harrisonburg. Again, we'll be leaving from the Rockingham County Fairgrounds, and I can let folks know the exact time to be there. I want to say it's around 6 o'clock that we're due back, but we would love to get as many people as possible to just come out and wave and cheer. And we've got 100 handheld flags we can hand out to distribute, so to just greet our veterans as they return home. And then when we get back to the fairgrounds, we have dinner catered by Mission Barbecue, and their spouse is invited to join them for dinner. We have a band and dancing, and we just want to give them that welcome home that they never got. So do you know a World War II, Korea, or Vietnam veteran? Obviously, our first priority is to take World War II veterans, but there are very few left, sadly. We are lucky if we get one on each trip. So the way that our rule is that anybody who served 1975 or prior is eligible to go on our trip. We don't care if you never left American soil. We don't care if you had a desk job. We don't care. If you served, and you should be honored. So if you know anyone that served 1975 or prior, please have them reach out to us. We can take up to 50 veterans per trip, and we have about, I want to say 15 seats left right now for the September trip. So please help us identify veterans. There are so many senior scams these days. People think, you know, we're going to try to get money out of them. We will not charge them a penny for the trip. We are also the only hub currently in the country that does not charge their guardian to go with them. So if they want to take their son or their grandson or daughter, granddaughter, they're eligible to go with them as well at no charge. Please help us spread the word. The best, we can do is by spreading the word among people who know of us. So many people have never even heard of us, don't know that we exist. So please spread the word. Obviously, financial donations would be always welcome, and then welcome home. Just please tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your church group. Help us get as many people out there as possible to welcome them home. And then I wanted to give Bill a minute so that he could share his experience with you. He just went on the June trip.
As you know, I've been a Rotarian for a long time, and our motto is service above self. And when I went on this trip, I first didn't know much about it either. And so I had an opportunity to, through my association with AMVETS, which is based in Stevens City, I learned that there was a trip going on. So I reached out, I got the phone number. Turned out it was Dianne who answered the phone. She said, "We go to the website and you fill out the application, and if we have room, no problem." I said, "Well, my son's a veteran. He served during the 90s in Korea for a year, and then he was a crew chief on Chinook helicopters. So well, he'd be perfect. He could be your guardian." And so we booked the trip, and it was life-changing. I lost a couple, I get emotional myself. We lost a couple of classmates from my high school. I grew up in New Jersey, and a couple of my classmates perished in Vietnam. And I got a chance to go to the wall and etch their name on a card that I'm going to submit to my class officers so that those two men can still be honored by our classmates at our high school, which still exists. So it was unbelievable experience. And the changing of the guard was so solemn but honorable in terms of how those men operate the honor guard process. And then if I may just share, two of our veterans, a World War II veteran who was 96 and a Korean War vet who was 90, were both in wheelchairs, and they were invited to be escorted up to actually be at the presentation after the changing of the guard and present the wreath. And it was announced this was the Honor Flight, Top of Virginia honor wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown. So it was a very unique, special, something Dianne does to make a special appointment for. And the gentleman who was giving instructions, who was not part of the honor guard processing, but came over and he said, "Sir," he was speaking to the World War II veteran. He said, "You are the second person only in my life that I have met who was part of the Army Air Corps. The first one was my grandfather." So his conversation, and this is very quiet and solemn, very little conversation, but it's because of this group and how it's created and the conversations we had in the two buses going back and forth. My son was overly impacted. He lives in southern Pennsylvania. He's a member of a VFW because of his Boy Scout involvement. And he's already got 4 people signed up and interested or willing to come. And they're going to bus down from Greencastle, Pennsylvania to come to Harrisonburg. That's that kind of commitment to do. So it was, so if you, in my purpose of joining the board, I said, after this, like in Rotary, I said, I'm never going to allow some World War II Korean or Vietnam veteran to have served as I did from 70 to 73 to have missed the opportunity to say, well, I didn't have a transportation, I didn't have a right. That's not an excuse. We have an opportunity for you to go free of charge and to be able to be taken to these memorials. And so that's my goal in life now, to continue to do that. As all of you Rotarians know, how you serve in your communities in many special ways.
I want to leave time for a couple of questions.
It's not a question. Thank you for what you're doing. The need is desperate. So, most homeless men are going to be my question.
I can speak loud. Mine is just comment too. My father-in-law was just shy of 94 when he went on one of the last flights out of Raleigh. And it was such a highlight of his life And I can't say enough good things about what you do.
If I may just mention, when we were there on our flight in June, the Korean War Memorial was under renovations and improvements. It just opened last week. And I also learned that that entire memorial, it's on 2 locations in that environment, 2 beautiful areas, totally renovated at a total cost of, I'm not sure what the total dollars, but South Korean government paid for all of it. Not $1 US was used to pay for that. So honoring our Americans who served nobly in South Korea and still continue to serve today, as my son did back in 92, 93. So.
Wow, that was a very impactful presentation. I'm sure many people here are taking notes of how we can make a difference. I also want to say we do something every year at Veterans Day, but we can't do it often enough. Are there any veterans in the room that would want to raise their hand or stand to be recognized? Ed? Steve? Thank you. Yep. And I apologize because I don't remember your name, your first name. George, sorry about that. Yep. So phenomenal. Well, thank you all for attending today. Thank you, Seth, for being here, and Bill for coming along and sharing your story. And we are adjourned. Thank you.